Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Brains Ki Baat. What is happening, guys? This is Shatik Roy, and today on Brains Ki Baat, we'll be talking about Netflix series Typewriter. Now, hope you all know that Typewriter is actually the Netflix series by Sujoy Ghosh. Yes, the Bengali director we all Bengalis are so proud of for his amazing work. And this was released in Netflix around the last weekend. And as usual, we all binged watched it like crazy. We were finished by Sunday, but we waited a day to take the notes and finally bring you the explanation slash discussion of the entire show. Now, before we tell you this video, would rather look up on the theory and the things that are a little bit difficult to understand or confusing to many people, and we'll be covering all those topics, doing elaborating on them. If you would like to know our personal views and feelings about the show, our opinions about and obviously a look at the plot as well as examining different things about the show, you should check out our review. We already have the review for the first episode out on our channel. You can find the link from the cards as well as the description. Actually, if you want the entire review, do subscribe to us right now and hit that bell icon, because as soon as the video of the entire review will be dropped, you will get notified about it. So without wasting any more time, let's just get into the explanation part. Now in this video, we are going to be dividing this video into three parts, and one by one I'm going to go into each topic. You can choose the topics from the description. We have the timestamps given right there. So the very first topic that we are going to get into is actually the origin of the major baddie of the season, that is Fakir. Now, as you guys might have seen, if you guys actually followed it truly, Fakir's real name wasn't Fakir. In real, he was named Bali, and that's what his mom used to call him. So it might be very confusing at the beginning who this little guy is. Now, we actually see this as a flashback in the show with a little bit different color grading that lets us see that this is actually something from the past, and we are being shown this as a flashback so that we can understand the story of how Fakir originated. Now you see, his mom was actually someone who was expert in black magic and probably had some supernatural powers. Now this is famous in ancient India from huge periods of time, that actually there are people who possess this kind of powers or abilities, and they can perform these dark arts and do various supernatural things which we don't get to see every day. And this kind of thing is what this story begins with. Instead of having a total horror or afterlife element, they instead try to make our main antagonist as someone who used to possess this power. Now his mom was actually a good person in the beginning, as we can see in the flashbacks. She always wanted to use her powers to help others all around, and what she used to do is that we see actually she used to go to people's houses, those who were suffering at old age and they were being forced to live probably by their family who didn't wanted to give them up yet, and she used to release them. She used to release their souls by taking their life, so in this sort of supernatural way. And she had this power in which she just needed to look at people to do that. So once she would look, she could actually see through them into their soul and release their souls, and just free them of their pain which they were having, because they were really old or probably really ill, suffering from some deadly diseases. They were gonna eventually die, but it was just too much of a suffering that they did not want it to take, and she used to free this kind of people. And she always had this motto that she should only use these powers for good, and that's what she said to her son, who really wanted to know this kind of things because he was really curious of her mother's work, what she did. And she once helped this old man by freeing him from his pain and ending his life, but this their family took really badly. Now at first they were okay probably with their father dying, but soon they realized that the father has actually changed his will to her name, and he's going to have all his inheritance to be inherited towards her. So basically, he passed on all his wealth towards her, and that was a really shocking thing for his family. So his sons and daughters really got pissed off at her, and they tried to attack her, even took the police, the cops to her house to harass her and things like that. And the son was really scared at this point, and he also wanted to know how this thing works, but his mom actually told him that you will know it once you have the proper judgment. So even at this time, the mom was really determined to use her powers only for good, and she did not wanted to teach or impart her power to someone who might not do the proper and the right use of it, or use it in a wrong way. She also did not do any harm to anyone or use her powers to earn money. So she even declined to take the money, and she said that she will just give it back. Anyways, so as days passed, one day Fakir was seen by this family who were really angry at them and wanted their revenge by. So they took took this kid who was again named Bala at that time, and took him, and they actually burned his hand and wrote Fakir, because his mom claimed that she is actually someone who lives like a beggar and she doesn't need their money. So she didn't steal their money either. So she was telling them they had a false claim, and they were really angry because their money, the money they wanted to have, was actually being passed on to a stranger or someone outside their family. And they thought like she just manipulated their father and killed him to get his money. So they were really angry, and even after hearing that she lives like a beggar, they really got pissed off and wrote Fakir in his hand, and that's how the name Fakir came. So after that, even they went a step further and decided to burn their house along with the mother and the son inside it. At the same moment when the mom was actually planning a escape away from all these people, because she was really angered about the assault that happened on her son. But as the house was burning, they understood there was no way to escape, only the son could escape from the back window. So she immediately, and after having such a bad impression from helping people, she understood that probably there's nothing good to be done by helping people of the world. You only have to suffer even worse pain. So she decided to teach Fakir, which was now supposed to be his name after writing on his hand. She imparted her knowledge of black magic to him and told him to take his revenge and rule over this world. Now, that, guys, is actually the birth of Fakir, our big baddie of the season, our main villain, and our main antagonist. Now, here we can see that Fakir actually was a really confused individual. From the beginning, he was this guy, little kid who had no clue of what was happening, and to be honest, he was pretty dull too. I mean, if you look at the kids of his age who the show actually follow in the present, during the present timing, rest of the kids, Sam and her friends, we can see how much smart they are. And this kid was actually, when he was talking to his mom and everything, we can see he lacked a basic intelligence. And what happened to him, he really grew in this poverty, and after what happened to his mother and what all he saw, and after getting that power, that really messed up with his head. And this shows more of a kid who did not had the proper path, rather than someone who wanted to be a bad guy. And this actually led him in his villainous path, and by the time we see him again, we see he's an adult and he has been doing a lot of stuff because he's notoriously famous. Even the cops know about him, and he's probably a big criminal, and everybody know about his superpowers too, because we see the articles about him later on. So what he's seen doing next is actually collecting souls of people, because we see that this inspector actually runs into him on the road, Inspector Mala, who is probably some kind of undercover cop, we're not sure. And her husband is actually also in the police, and she calls him and tells him that she has seen Fakir, and by the look of their faces we can see that he is pretty big right now, a big baddie, and they all want to catch him. So her husband does warn her not to go there alone and not to move from that place, but she goes there trying to be too much of a brave woman, and goes inside and finds no one in there. Whereas Fakir talks about all these people. From beginning we see Fakir talking to these really zombie like lifeless kinds of people who were just sitting there with no blunt expressions on their face, who really seemed to be dead, to be honest. And that's what we find out later on, that he was actually killing people and keeping their dead bodies in the basement, and he actually kept their souls inside because probably they gave him some kind of power, and he was planning something big too. So the next thing we see is actually the cops come and attack him, and we see him in his full power when he lived as a human being, and that is scary as hell. I mean, we see his mom in the past also doing one murder, but this time he actually does that to 2 or 3 people, and that's pretty powerful, to be honest. But at the end he is defeated when his own wife tips off the cops that the only way to stop him is to cover up his eyes, because with his eyes he can look into people's soul and then use it to his power. So that can be seen as the weakness. By blocking his eyes you can actually block his powers. So that's one thing we learned about Fakir. And then finally Fakir is caught and he's supposed to be hanged. Now we come to the next part where we come to the origin of the next ghost. You can say a evil super powered clone version of our main protagonist of the show, and that is Jenny. So we are going to now talk about the origin or the creation of the evil clone of Jenny. So Jenny was actually the granddaughter of Matthews, who is actually an horror writer or author. So he used to write horror stories, and as most people do, he also ran out of ideas and was looking for something good. Then he finally heard about this guy getting arrested. So by the time Fakir got arrested, and in between his punishment, that is his hanging, there was some period of time when Matthews was a really powerful man. He was rich and obviously he had some connections. So what he did was he used to meet with Fakir in the jail and talk to him to get ideas for his next novel. But what Fakir did was he was really smart by this time for some reason, and started to manipulate him into trying on his plan, because he knew he was going to be hanged and he could not escape that, because they actually wrapped his eyes and he could not look and use his powers. So he knew that he needs to be hanged, and after that he needs to come back in some kind of way by performing some kinds of resurrection. And that's why he manipulated Matthews into using his granddaughter as a way to come back. And also he wanted a piece of wood from him, with which he crafted a little model of himself, which is dubbed a doll in here, and that has some work in his resurrection, which we are going to come into later on. So what happened next is, after he was hanged, before his cremation is done, within this span of 3 days he was gonna do something. So they brought back his body to Matthew's villa, the villa around which the entire story has been based. And in this villa we see how things takes place is that right at the blood moon we see him come back to his body, and he tries to do something, but that's when we see. So then the incident of the Badres Vira actually takes place. So what happens is, Moses is the guy who used to work at the morgue and brings the body in, so that to see the miracle actually. And on the other hand, now we see that little Jenny actually has the doll of that was crafted with the earth. So she had that, and right when the blood moon came out, and we actually see Fakir come back to his body, and he starts screaming like hell, probably trying to do something wrong. So everyone gets scared, even the inspector who is present there, and Matthews ends up in hitting him on his head with the typewriter. Now what this hit does is actually traps his soul inside the typewriter. So just when he was about to go back in his body and be resurrected, he was hit and killed again by the typewriter. And the soul, obviously getting out of his body, immediately jumped into the nearest thing that it could, and that was the typewriter. And since then it has been in the typewriter. So what it did was it was trapped in it for some reason and couldn't do anything. So after few days after the dead body was probably discarded or something, we actually see Jenny is playing with the typewriter and she cuts her hand in it, and obviously some blood drips on the typewriter keys, which activates back the soul trapped inside the typewriter. And this also gives birth to the evil clone of the person whose blood was dripped, that is Jenny's evil clone. This leads to this new little character who is most menacing and who is done doing the most murder in the series. She kills Jenny's mom as well as keeps playing with Jenny, probably manipulating her and making her childhood a horrible nightmare. She probably soon kills Matthews. We don't see that, it's off screen, probably where the show actually starts. And soon she keeps on being there until and unless both Maria, the nanny of Jenny, and Jenny leave. And since they do not come back to Goa, what this ghost of Jenny does, we don't know. Probably she is not that much powerful with Jenny not around and the typewriter being moved from its place. Now that's pretty much it for the origin of the both of the ghosts in the show. Now next what we are going to do is we are going to take a look at the ending of the show. That is how everything wraps up in the present day. We have a number of people whose lives are already intertwined with the typewriter as well as the bandage villa and Fakir spirit. So basically we have this guy, mysterious looking guy, who is dressing as their maths teacher, basically very reminiscent of Sujoy Ghosh's Bob Bishwas character from Kahini. And he is actually this guy who wants to resurrect Fakir and bring him back to the present day. And we clearly see that as his intention, but why we don't know. And he is really keen to get the typewriter so that he can do the resurrection on another blood moon night. On the other hand, the typewriter actually ends up in the police station, from where it is taken by the group of kids led by Sameera, who is actually really eager to meet a ghost because she thinks that through that ghost she can somehow make contact to her own deceased mother. So that's what she is trying to do, and the kids take the typewriter and bring it back to Bandy's villa. Now let me tell you that Moses actually met with Jenny, the grown-up version of her, and returned her the wooden doll of Fakir, and she also kept it in the bandage villa. So at the end everything is in the villa, and it's blood moon night, perfect for resurrection of Fakir. So the ritual basically is like that. Since the typewriter was at first activated with Jenny's blood, you need to sacrifice her to bring back Fakir to life. And you also need that wooden doll, because since Fakir knew that he probably would not be able to get back to his body at right time, or there might be some problem, he made that as a backup plan. And just like you can see Horcruxes in Harry Potter series or various other stories, this is a way or a form that he can have as a backup stored inside that. So that acts as a backup since all the elements are present. Jenny along with the typewriter and the wooden doll. Amit actually tries to bring back, but in the end we see the police officer, Sam's father, stepping up at the right moment and saving the day, along with Jenny learning that since the evil clone ghost version of her that is probably a part of Fakir's soul that has taken the form of Jenny and attacking everyone, can actually be defeated by Jenny only. Yes, no one else can hurt her or control her or fight against her, but only Jenny can defeat her, because the ghost is a part of her, the ghost originated from her blood, and the ghost is made from her, so they are connected in some way. And the moment Jenny goes ahead and touches the ghost, she cannot do anything, and she is so much powerful than the ghost. So these are the things we learned. But remember one thing, by the end we do not see if Jenna can actually escape, because she was hanging from the window, and we do not see that if she climbs back inside or not. We do see the ghost version of her, the evil clone, fade away, but by the end we will actually see that she is back. On the other hand, the kids actually defeat Fakir and Amit Roy by burning the typewriter in a van and then throwing the van off a cliff. Now Amit Roy does jump with it, and in the end we actually come to the realization that who is this Amit Roy and why he was so desperate to bring back Fakir. Well, this is because he is none other than Fakir's own son that we saw earlier when the police attacked and caught Fakir and they arrested him. At that moment, we could see that the kid was totally in love with his dad and totally worried about the cops taking away his dad. So basically, he worshipped in his dad in a way, loved him too much. His mother did understand that Fakir needed to go because he was not a good person, but on the other hand, the kid idolized him, and all these years he has spent to get back the typewriter and to bring back his father to life. So the show basically ends, the season basically ends with him cutting his hand open to drip his blood back on the typewriter to activate it again. So all the damages caused by the fire and the fall is amended immediately, and the typewriter is back at form. On the other hand, back at the Fernandez villa, we see Jenny burning that wooden doll of Fakir, and the doll actually turns into a skeleton that runs out, reminding you of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Anyone? Exactly the how he looked inside Harry's head. So that's a lot way similar. So probably most evil lords try to come back in that way anyways. So the next thing we see is actually when her husband comes back and enters the house, Jenny fades away, and this shows that the spirit version of Jenny, that is the evil clone, is back. Now we don't know if the real version of Jenny is still there because she is probably the one burning that wooden doll, but either both of them are present or the Jenny real one actually died on being dropped from the window just like her mom died, and this is the ghost version. Well, we'll get to know that in the next season obviously, and we will also need to know that how Fakir comes back and Amit Roy is dead, but probably a version of him will come back somehow due to the typewriter. And we also see that her husband actually has got a shirt which is bloody. Now you remember that her husband was actually seeing a really attractive woman from whose husband he actually had a lot of investment which did not turn out properly. So he had to return them the money and was pressurized by them, as well as the girl blackmailed him for having slept with him. So that's probably what he did again, probably called her to sleep with him and probably murdered her, because that's what makes sense. Now we don't know what will happen with this plot. Probably he will be another criminal, or probably she would come back as a ghost version of herself. We don't know that, but that's really something to look forward to next season. So lot of setups for next season, and this is what we got from this season. Hope you guys got everything we said. Now if you like this video, do hit this a thumbs up. Now if you think we've missed anything or you interpreted some of it in some other way, then let us know in the comments down below. And if you have any more questions that you would like us to answer from the show, then also do that, ask us in the comment. Follow us on our social network. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, everywhere. So do check those out, keep following us, check out our reviews on other shows we have recently reviewed Netflix Leela. We also broke down the Sacred Games trailer, and we will be also reviewing any other Netflix and other web series that would be releasing very soon. So do check them out. And this is gonna be all for the video. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Chatik Roy out from Brains Ki Baat.